I'm Harry Miller, and I'm going to show you a basic LINQ to SQL example. I'll create an entity class that models the customers table in the sample Northwind database, and then create a simple query to list customers who are located in London. LINQ to SQL provides a runtime infrastructure for managing relational data as objects. The data model of a relational database is mapped to an object model that is expressed in Visual Basic. At runtime, LINQ to SQL translates the Visual Basic into database queries, and then translates the returned results into objects. Although typically you might use the Object Relational Designer to create entity classes and relationships visually, for this example I'll create these classes manually to help show the LINQ to SQL concepts. I'll name it LINQ Console App. I need to add two references, so in the Add Reference dialog box, on the .NET tab, I'll select system.data.link and click OK. I also need to add system.windows.forms from the .NET tab because there's a message box later in the example. In Module 1, I'll put 3 import statements for LINQ and Windows forms. Now I'll create an entity class in the module. An entity class is a class that's mapped to a database table. To do this mapping, all I need to do is apply the table attribute. The name property specifies the name of the table in the database. The next step is to designate properties to represent database columns. There are 2 properties here, Customer ID and City. They both get the column attribute, which designates them as representing columns in the database table. The Customer ID property is a primary key column in the database. Both are designated for private storage, which means that LINQ to SQL can store and retrieve values directly, instead of using public accessors that might include business logic. I need to set up a connection to the Northwind database that I'm using, so I'll create a data context object. The data context is the main channel for retrieving objects from the database and for submitting changes. I'll also declare a table of customer to act as the logical typed table for the queries I'll create against the customers table. Now to create a query to find out which customers in the customers table are located in London. This code just describes the query. To actually run it, I'll need to create a for each loop. I'll also add a line of code here to show the SQL commands that LINQ to SQL generates in case I need to do some debugging. This shows the commands that are sent to the database. Now I'll put in the for each loop to run the query and format a message box to show the results. For each object returned by the query, add it to the message. For the message, this code sets variables with formatting information such as the title and the basic appearance. This code shows the message using the variables. Now I'll run it, and I get my list of customers in London. Also, the console window shows the generated SQL code. You can get more information about developing Visual Basic applications in the Visual Basic Help. You can find other resources such as technical articles, samples, blogs, and videos at the Visual Basic Developer Center. Just go to msdn.microsoft.com/vbasic.